Yes, I do.
So yeah, I was. My wife's from Australia, and so it's a little
Ah,
bit similar, a little
yeah, yeah,
similar to
yeah. I grew up in Australia.
that.
Um,
Oh, you grew up in Australia, so you have an
wh-
Australian accent. Okay.
well, get this, I'm born in New Zealand, grew up in Australia, came back here when I was sort of in my tweens, and then I ran off and worked in New York for a long time, and then London. And my mum is South African, so this is called a global conglomeration of an accent right here.
Uh, So a mutt with a mutt dialect,
Pretty much.
basically. Let me see if this thing's cooking up. Yeah, there you are. Okay, it's going to take another 45 seconds.
That's all good. Mhm.
Okay, let's see. Are we on, people? There's 11 people in the house.
I'll
Yeah.
be on.
Yeah. Sometimes when we do shows back to back to back, this is the third one we've done in 2 hours.
I know.
Uh,
I'm like, whoa.
the notifications don't go out. So for those of you who are with us, thank you, Creating Miracle Minds. Thank you for being here. First of all, thank you for the continued love and support and contributions. Allow us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day, which is not a complaint or a limited thought. That's just how the 5D plus works. You don't get anything guaranteed. You just have to be present, and then everything shows up when you need it. But also, because we're getting suppressed again, if you could just share it to a page or to a group one time, that'd be cool. So we had two shows this morning with two lovely divine feminines. We got another one here, and we got another one coming on tonight. This one and the next one we've never met before. So, in typical Soulogy style, we're going to have a spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about, or doing courageous conversation and get to know each other in front of a bunch of people. So, first of all, let me just thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. It's a pleasure to meet you, Joanna.
Yeah, it's so great to meet you in somewhat person. I've been following you and tuned into your incredible work over the years, and I absolutely adore it and I love it. So I'm so glad to be speaking with you.
Very cool. And then
Yeah.
if you watch the shows, and I love to ask people, have you always been this weird, or were you born this way?
I've
Which
heard
which
you ask
is,
this before.
but I mean, did you have a traditional, easy, smooth, graceful awakening, or
Well,
did you,
I mean,
or did
I
you have
sort of,
the, yeah,
no, I didn't have a gnarly one, I haven't had to die or anything and come back, I guess. I feel like I came in with a certain level of consciousness
hmm,
that just has been with me the whole time. And I understand why was born into the family I was born into. And my dad was very traditional, my mum, not so much. Great balance of the two. Um, and yeah, it gave me the ability to go down this path, even though I sort of didn't want to. I sort of resisted it at first. And then, really embrace this. And I mean, the way it was set up was absolutely brilliant. But as I've been going through, as everybody does through their own personal journey in their life, we do things to sort of close ourselves down at certain points, and then we kind of open back up again. And, I'm really enjoying the opening back up again. But
huh.
so,
How long has that been going on?
well, I mean, I've been on this journey really my whole life in a way,
Yeah,
right?
but
And I've
yeah,
taken different paths. And I feel like I've really been stepping back into this side. I mean, I was sort of trying to step out of corporate and back into this world for a while. That took me ages actually to be able to actually make the leap, because I was sort of fishing around and training in different modalities, and every time I tried on someone else's stuff, it didn't feel right.
hmm,
So that really led me to understand that I needed to create my own thing. And that was the most powerful way I could show up to be who I need to be here at this point on the planet, to bring the biggest light that I can be. So it's really interesting the way that we go through this journey. I actually wrote a book about it.
hmm.
It's called The Inside Hustle. So that's about my personal journey of evolution. And I sort of describe it as Bridget Jones meets Eat, Pray, Love on steroids. And, you know, I wrote it because I didn't know what else to do, to be totally honest, talking about making that leap, you know. I'd been trying all this stuff and thinking, how can I do what I'm so passionate about, which is this world of consciousness and spirit and energy. And none of it was really landing within me deeply. And I just felt that, you know, maybe I could just share what I had learned along the way to help other people not fall into some of the same traps, because I feel like there are these consciousness traps as we go and they sort of lead to dead end paths or they go nowhere. And I really wanted to help other people not do that, you know, and everyone's got their own journey, of course, but I sort of thought, gosh, if there was a, you know, something that helped me sort of navigate this path a little easier and maybe spend more time that was really profoundly effective, then that would be amazing, because I found a lot of what I was doing wasn't really effective in the way that I wanted it to be in my life and, you know, in the reality, physical life, not sort of up in the ethers with all of that other stuff, you know. I was wanting to see the shifts and changes in my life.
Right.
So yeah, so that's part of how I stepped off, you know, into the different direction.
Do you feel like writing the book allowed you to embody everything in some way, or anchor everything within yourself?
Yes, it wasn't even anchoring it, but it more helped me crystallize an understanding of everything as it went, and it helped me sort of come to a conclusion, because I didn't write it with a conclusion of mine. I was sort of at the end of it thinking, how am I gonna finish this? But it brought everything home into a bit of a crystallized version of my understanding that I think is helpful for other people. But what's most interesting is, you know, when I was putting it together and I had an editor in Australia, and I'd sort of seen to her, I'd done all of this writing, you know, behind the scenes just for me. And I guess it's sort of channeled writing, or it's me tuning into the higher dimensional aspects of myself and just allowing it to flow through. And I hadn't ever shared it with anybody, but I shared it with my editor, and she sort of said, well, where has this been the whole time? This needs to be in the book. And so in between these chapters, which are the very, you know, humorous journey of the comedy of errors of my personal evolution, it's got this channeled writing. But what's the most interesting thing is that it's helped people recalibrate their energy as they go. And I wrote it with an intention to help people shift and change, and to help, you know, find a sense of freedom and inspiration in this whole thing, and a different perspective, really, just to ladder up to. And you know, the feedback has been amazing. And that was the thing I've been searching for when I was looking into all these other modalities and careers and things, that really deep sense of fulfillment, of being of service, and of being able to, you know, bring light to someone else to help them spark their own light as a guide, you know. So that's been the really beautiful part, that every time I get a message from someone saying how they feel like they can stop searching, and they feel like they don't need to be on an endless healing journey anymore, and they, you know, can sort of throw some of the old spiritual paradigm out the window that's been holding them back. I think that's brilliant.
Would you say that mirrors what happened to you on a personal level?
In a different way, I guess.
I mean, obviously, you looked into a lot of different modalities, which is not unlike everybody here. You also had downloads, which is like everybody here, to include divine episodes in different ways. Everybody gets their information differently.
Yeah.
Past lives, galactic visitations, apparitions, dragons, elementals, the whole nine yards.
For sure.
But how did you get to that point? I mean, when did you get to the point that you felt like you had a beat on it and you were ready to write a book? I mean, there had to be a story before the story. I know you, and really what you're saying, most people that have come on this show and that tune in, they always say, I was born this way. And then I went to sleep, and then I came back out, and many of them say they had successive traumas, or, you know, or one big trauma like a car wreck, or they're estranged from their family when they woke up.
Mm.
You know, they're trying to tell people, hey, you know, this is what it's all about. Nobody's listening. Then they get to the point where they start embodying it, and they also realize that it's meant for them. But they do get to a point where they go, I'm going to live my life this way from this point forward. And that is to follow my internal guidance, and so on and so on. Was there a point where you just made up your mind to step away from that which you alluded to earlier, like the corporate world and so on? Was there a point, and was there anything that was an impetus for that?
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like I was working in corporate advertising in New York and London. Originally, at that point, I just felt like it wasn't in alignment with my soul. It was great and it was fun, and I could have gone up the ladder and become really successful. I was earning money and all of that kind of stuff, but that didn't seem the most important thing to me. What was the most important thing was me being incredibly passionate. If I had to be in this reality and make money to have a life and do all the cool adventurous things I wanted to do, like travel and whatever, you know, I had to I wanted to find something that was going to work in my version of what that was going to be. And I wanted to be joyful and extremely passionate about all of it all the time. And, you know, that was the first bit that caused me to want to shift. And I just knew that there was something else, and something more purposeful. But then after that, you know, that took me a while. And then I had a few disasters in my personal life.
That's the good part, right?
Which,
I mean, were those the catalyst? Were those the things?
For sure.
Were those the dark nights of the soul that people talk about?
I mean, somewhat. I can sort of find humor in it now, but, you know, I mean, we're kind of ridiculous, because in my style, it happens with such a sense of, I can't believe that happened to you kind of thing, that I can see at the time, but I was still like, you know, just wanting to go down that path. I wasn't ready for something else. I wasn't ready to really give up the drama, give up the even though it was comedic drama, and give up the alcohol and the drugs and all of it. I wasn't ready then, you know. So then there became a point where I really realized I wasn't at my best self, and I wanted to make some shifts, because that didn't feel good. But then, you know, some years later, then I've made another shift, and probably I made a shift about 6 years ago, and then I made another big shift about 3 years ago. So I keep just having these seismic shifts as I go, and allowing myself to do it with grace and ease, as opposed to getting sort of really slapped around the gills, you know, by the universe or my higher self or whatever. So I've done it in a slightly different way. I haven't had that crazy wake up call or that Moses on the mountain moment or whatever. It's been a real cumulative effect.
Yeah, but I mean, those things you're describing, those are those Moses on the mountain experiences. Like, I mean, the come to Jesus meeting that you have with yourself. It sounds like you had, again, a similar path to a lot of people here, because a lot of the light workers that I've met had you know, kind of that mix of reckless and fearless lives. You know, they like to push the envelope, live to the extreme, a lot of partying, promiscuity,
totally.
You know, extremism in their careers. But I mean, like, like 6 years ago, how did you recognize the loop that you were in, and how did you pull yourself out of it and find equilibrium?
I just went, you know, I started having a lot of experiences, I guess. And, you know, I started, you know, going on some spiritual adventures that I'd done before, but for whatever reason, they seemed more profound, and there was more happening at that time. It just was my time. You know, I think we have this codex within us that gets unlocked at a certain time, no matter what kind of thing. And I happened to be really in alignment with that and on point. And, you know, I guess my father died, and that gave me the ability to sort of think, okay, what am I really going to do here? And I knuckled down and wrote the rest of the book, and I got it out, and I crafted
That was 6 years ago. 6 years ago.
Yeah, but the book didn't come out until last year.
Right.
It took some time. But I started having these dreams, so I was getting a lot of different stuff happening. The significant ones, maybe I was visited by these 3 giant light beings in a dream, and they told me it was all about heart technology. They literally said to me, I was sitting on a chair like I'm sitting here now, and I'm looking up at these giant beings, and I was saying, but what about this ancient meditation technique? And they were like, no. And I was like, well, what about this healing modality? And they're like, no. And they said, it is always about the heart. It has only ever been about the heart, and it will only ever be about the heart. Heart technology is all you need. It is the most important and relevant technique on the planet right now. And I was sort of like, I woke up sort of thinking, well, what the hell's heart technology? I didn't really understand what that was. And I Googled it and got a whole bunch of cardiac equipment. That clearly wasn't what I was looking for. But this was before people were really talking about heart intelligence and any of that stuff. And I had not, at that point, discovered the Institute of Heart Math. And I'd always heard like, oh, this heart is the seat of the soul and all those general things. But I didn't really understand it. I wasn't embodying it, I guess, And so then I was taken on a bit of a vision quest over years to delve into the multidimensional aspects and nature of the heart and why it's so important, and really working with the heart and being able to bring out spontaneous states of bliss that you might try and get with a decade of meditating twice a day for 40 minutes. And by, spontaneously when you're doing the ironing. I mean, it was really, and that I can see why that's so important now at this time on the planet, because when we're trained and conditioned into and programmed into so much going on here in the mental space, you have to bring it down here to be able to have the other dimensional understanding and to expand your frame of reference out of what you've been. It's kind of impossible to do it here. This is such a constraint, right? So, I started working with that as the foundation of my work that I was doing personally. And now I also do that with clients in a process of transformation that I found is effective. And that includes, channeled information, it includes sound healing, it includes all sorts of different stuff that everybody kind of, that's just naturally come out of what I've done rather than specific modality that I picked up these days.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for people with their individual signature. We're not meant to be like anybody else in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer that whatever we receive is meant for us first and foremost. It's nice to be able to share things, but
Totally.
But it is a unique experience to each and every one of us. These light beings that came in the dream, did they ever return? Did they tell you who they were? Do you see them as aspects of yourself?
They didn't tell me who they were. I didn't even need to know. It was a resonance thing for me.
Sure.
Yeah. And I just felt in complete trust, and I just knew that was what I needed to start investigating, and it sent me down a path. So it was beautiful.
These the vision quest, were they leading the way? Were there other faces of the universe that were guiding you? Were there other types of divine experiences?
I really have not. I have a lot of visitations like that in dreams, and I'm a feeler, so I feel energy more than seeing it. So I see it in my dreams, and sometimes I get little snippets of it. But even with all of the stuff the information that I've been bringing through, it feels like the most expansive version of me, my energy signature. I'm not attributing it to anybody else outside of myself. And so those beings could have well have been that aspect of me coming to direct me, I don't know, because I didn't ask who they were at the time. I was too busy trying to work out what the hell heart technology was.
Yeah, I get you. I was just curious.
Yeah, for sure.
And so you have 3 years go by, and you have round 2. Was round 2 was, people talk about, life is a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go around the spiral, we see the same thing over and over again. People say until you learn the lesson or whatever. But was there a similarity in what occurred 3 years after that first thing that happened 6 years ago in terms of you going back into the wisdom well?
It wasn't really anything necessarily that happened. I just got bored of the things I was still carrying from my old life. They didn't really feel necessary anymore. And so I shed another layer, and I really just committed to supporting myself being the most open and clear channel, and in a way that I committed even deeper to everything I was doing. And I think part of it is we have to be ready for that stuff, because it just falls away when it's ready to.
Yeah, I agree.
When we push it or force it,
yeah,
not
there's a
go.
charge. There's a charge there, right?
Yeah.
There's a program. There's a program about. Yeah, you picked up a program saying I need to quit doing this, or I need to start doing that, or why didn't I do this, or I get that. Yeah.
And so, but everything I've ever done has been like that. I've allowed it to fall away. I haven't really pushed or forced it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize how important that is now, and why that's very effective. But I really also started deeply trusting what I was getting in a bigger way. And that just blew everything open for me, because when I could really, trust the light that I am and that I came to be, it meant that, when light claims more light, it's that kind of expansive nature when your perspective and your awareness and your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions are all in support of that. And there's nothing that is causing you to come a cropper, because I feel like that's what happens a lot of the time. We may have this understanding, and then we're not actually embodying it or being able to act it out, because we're kind of still programmed in certain ways in our reality.
Mm-hmm.
But when we can actually really understand the subtle nuances of energetically how we disempower ourselves so often,
mm-hmm.
and we start to bring those little things into alignment, then we start to feel this sense of incredible empowerment in this deep knowing that is.
How do you bring those things into alignment?
I mean, the heart technology for me has been huge, but then having the ability to adjust my awareness and my perspective to the most expansive high perspective I can pull out of my understanding. Yeah. And not being in the habit of all these other bits and pieces that we've been programmed to do, like self-criticism and judgment. Judgment is a huge one. I had to stop judging myself, and then I stopped judging other people, and other things were going on. Judgment massively gets in the way. Yeah. So it's about these different frequencies that you start to understand, because you start to feel it so intensely that you know that there's a shift required there, because you literally can't keep functioning in that same way anymore, because it doesn't feel good. It feels like, not the highest order within the self.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely part of the alignment, and taking time to spend with ourself, that inner relationship with ourself,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing with the perspective, and a lot of people, the term, all these terms and all these labels, they just get contorted. But light workers,
yeah,
I call my wife, who's been a practitioner for 20 years, a shadow eater. Where does the shadow come in with your experience, the darkness? You said light begets light, but how do you view the shadow? What's it meant to you? And in your evolution, how did that work?
I mean, my shadow's been great fun. But I've had to learn to love those deepest, darkest aspects of me, because when we do, we find freedom, when we can just, instead of trying to push it away or pretend that it doesn't exist or kind of just, avoid it, when we're doing all of that, it's just caught an energy that we're creating within, and we're creating push-pull and all of that stuff in our frequency. So when we can really understand that this shadow is just in service of our light, we're working together, it's not this deep, awful part, but it's part of the process of self-love, I believe. And that's loving yourself in love in the most eternal sense, that really expansive frequency of divine love, which is very, very different to just giving yourself a bubble bath and buying yourself some flowers, right?
Right. But like in terms of because you mentioned the partying and some of the other stuff, like how did you learn to love your shadow? How did that happen?
I always made fun of my terrible muck-ups in life. And I think humor is such a great equalizing vibration to everything. It allows you to not sit in the density, but you're still acknowledging and understanding that the density is there. You're not trying to avoid it. And so, the cathartic process when I wrote the book was me sharing a lot of my downfalls and a lot of the things that happen in a really humorous way, so that people could find light in their own shadow.
Right.
Because that's part of the integration process.
Yeah, I like that.
But it wasn't easy writing it, because it took me back to these dark times where I wasn't my best self, and some of it was really deeply embarrassing and shameful.
But that's what I was saying earlier. Like, did the book help you anchor and embody the truth that you were putting out there? Because I mean, I've noticed with myself and others over the years, these past 10 years, we pull something in, we put it out there to share it, but we haven't embodied it. It's like we get the information, but we haven't embodied it. And it just seems like, the way, especially now, like the way you tell the story about the book, that you must have been anchoring and embodying and aligning, and zero, bringing to the 0 point field these polarities within yourself, which is really cool. And I love the thing about the humor, because there's so much wisdom in the humor. I mean,
so much.
There really is. If you can't laugh, then what's that? Maya Angelou. What's her name? Maya Angelou.
Yeah, Maya Angelou.
She says, if a person can't laugh, I don't trust them. She said something like that, which is kind of harsh, but I get what she's saying. Now, in terms of like these patterns and behaviors that you're talking about, that you recognize, that you had enough with, would you say that you brought them into balance through modalities or through conscious, I don't want to say correction and use it in the wrong term, but conscious correction, conscious living, moment by moment, as each thing was appeared to you? Or was it both?
Yes, it was the latter. It was really the latter. I mean, the modalities are great, energetic understanding for me, but I feel like it's just consciousness shifting that I've been going through, and that can come from simple perspective shifts and the ability to find, the levity in situations from another perspective, to take you out of the conditioned way of going into the deep darkness and shame and all of those lower vibrational frequencies. It's just a part of the natural process. But that was part of my natural state of being. I was the one that, as a teenager, was sort of saying to my friends, oh, but, I created this, and I'm upset that I created this. And they're like, what are you talking about? You didn't create it. And I'm like, yes, I did, And so there was this deep sense of my connection to everything that was happening in my world always.
Right.
But that also, because I was already a quite critical and judgmental person, that meant that I even broke up my frequency even more at one point. And it was so disempowering, even though I had this understanding, but it was sort of only part of the puzzle, really. And so I really started understanding as I went along, those are the subtle nuances in energy that I was talking about and consciousness, because they can make all of the difference. The tiniest little thing can make the biggest difference in our energetic frequency and resonance.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be some complicated modality or some complicated practice or anything. You know, I'm really into simple, practical, you know, real-time kind of stuff. And I use a lot of that in my teachings and in my experiences that I guide people through to help them come have that experience for themselves. Because we have to come to it on our own, and we each have our own individual way of doing that, you know,
that's
depending
right.
on what we're carrying.
Yeah, it's the experience is the teacher, no doubt.
Definitely.
Did you have to extract yourself from you know, focusing on external things, people, events and such? Were you entangled you know, through your experience in life with external things? And you know, you know, the whole blaming and you know, making excuses or you know, it's not me kind of thing. Did you have to go through all that?
Oh, definitely. You know, because as much as I had the awareness there, my personality self wasn't really on board with that at that point, you know, and that was in the reaction state, overpowering my awareness. So even though I had the awareness there, I was still acting out in another way, you know. So I think it takes time for us to bring that together within ourselves and allow us to step back from our initial knee-jerk, you know, reaction that we want to go down. You know, we all go through that, I think, to some to a certain extent.
But I think it's interesting what you say too. I had the awareness, but I was still over here, you know, in the quicksand. So it's kind of a oxymoron almost. But I agree. I do agree with it. I've said many times, you know, I was holding the hands of angels and devils at the same time. I lost my fucking mind and found the light at the same time. So it's weird because there's like two streams playing, right? And you've got this awareness, yet you can't apply this awareness with, let's just say, you know, a high degree of efficacy. You know, you just have this kind of like this seesaw thing going, right? And I think that's something that's probably not talked about enough, because I think when people use the term I'm awake or I'm aware, it kind of gives a connotation of, you know, job's done, you know, but it's really kind of what you're talking about. You've got this stream of awareness that's always been there and is expanding because it never really retracts. It might, you know, kind of go into a flat line from time to time, but then you have the whole cycle of life experience where, you know, it's two steps up and one back, and sometimes it's two back and one up, you know. And but yeah, I think that's a really good point what you bring up. That's another way, I guess, or another aspect of integrating polarities, maybe.
Definitely.
Integrating the higher self and the human.
Yeah. And it's not like, I just don't think that this idea of, oh, we're awake, and I really don't even like this awake versus asleep thing. I find it really kind of judgmental. And
I'm with you on that.
I don't resonate with it at all. So I rarely use those terms. I don't, but if I'm talking about awareness, I feel like that is the ever flowering lotus of our being, that we're going through a process of remembering here. We're not waking up, you know, we're remembering who we truly are. It's different.
No, I think go ahead.
Yeah, because in my understanding, in my experience, and I just have my experience to go on, because everything I bring through is based on my experience, you know, that's how I bring in these understandings that I feel, and this remembrance of who we truly are. We've just got all these layers of, created stuff that provides a sort of barrier to this true divine nature that we truly are, and our multidimensional being and access to all of it with our superconscious abilities, like the whole 9 yards, and but everything is in the perfect right timing for us. Like that codex I was talking about that we all have within us is being activated at different points via different people or places on the planet or wherever we're at. That is the activation point that helps this start to come online. So we're bringing back, I think, parts of our divine nature. We're bringing it back online from this, we've just come in with a lot of stuff basically into this reality, and then we create more on top of it. So we sort of have to wade through a bit of that, but the beauty is at the moment, it's not like it was 20 years ago, when my mum was going through this. It's so much quicker and easier now because the vibrational energy of the planet is totally different.
It's not like it was 2 months ago.
Right. Well, exactly.
But it's interesting too, because, and just looking back at this month, which is been like every month before it, which has been bigger than the month before it.
Totally.
I'd even say this past month has been bigger than the previous 6 months. But, and I'm not just saying that about my own experience, but that whole thing about awareness and the human condition running side by side has never been more obvious than in this past month. And really, if I look back at each month prior, it's because there's this constant flow of a higher perspective, which means you're seeing things you didn't see before.
Yes.
Your awareness is growing, obviously, because that's why you have the sight to see things you haven't seen before. Yet you're having to deal with things that that you thought you dealt with, yet they're coming back in a different way or a deeper way. So it's interesting. I think a lot of this stuff that we talk about, we talk in nouns, which to me signifies a stationary thing, when actually it's all motion, motion. And but it's interesting to hear you explain it that way. Somebody put aware seems like a better word. I agree. What do you do when you get triggered? How do you deal with that now?
I bring in my awareness, and I go to me. If I'm triggered, it's all about me, right? It's never about anything that's going on out there. And then I look underneath the layers of I look for the metaphor underneath, and I sit with that energy within my body, and I feel it, and I allow it to be there. And when I am also at the same time, aligning to the higher understanding of what this means for me, that allows it to dissipate and flow through pretty quickly. And I just, as you were just talking about, I just see it as in motion. It's just, this is happening. It's like water off a duck's back now. I don't go into it and sit in it for days on end anymore. It's sort of really easy to flow through if we're not gripping onto it. And even sometimes, I've even moved away so much from dialing into it and trying to figure it out or trying to find out what it means. I've just allowed it to be what it is. And then it seems to go even quicker.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we want to find meaning, even if it is spiritual meaning, to all of this that we go through. And that can also be one of the consciousness traps, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I definitely agree with that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I think, on this path, there's so many of those, and you asked a question I didn't properly answer it before, even about, going outside of yourself. And I really, really started to understand on my journey. I was looking at these supposed, these beings that other people were channeling as more hierarchical than myself, and I'm this lowly little human being. And even I think in the state of the world right now, and, all of the different things that are going on, there's a real trap to be fallen into if you're in any kind of agenda kind of view of this whole thing, because it doesn't seem like the most that in itself seems like another consciousness trap, all of these rabbit holes. And I think a lot of the exterior is the trap in a way. And it's not to spiritual bypass anything or any of that kind of stuff, because, I know that term's been bandied around for a little while now, but, it's about understanding that the deepest resonance that we can have within us is by anchoring here and allowing the outside to be as it is, because the way that we are able to bring the greatest energy to the planet right now is by being the light that we truly are, right? And holding that frequency.
Yeah.
The frequency of our true divine nature.
Yeah, which is what? Like
eternal love.
Well, I mean, and I think you bring up a good point about like the word awakened, and I mean, you can bring up a lot of words. Ascension, twin flame.
Ascension's got to be a trigger word for me. Every time I hear it, I'm like,
okay, well, that's what I'm saying. And even eternal love, and even unconditional love, and even every one of these words have been just they've just been contorted. There's just all kinds of different connotations that go with it. Frequencies coming off of it. Depends on who's saying it, or how much you've heard it, or who's listening to it. But so what is that? There seems like a real I want to say like a beautiful simplicity. Like, like we're talking about the humor. The humor has got such wisdom, but the simple, profound truths are the greatest truths. They seem like that. It is a very, like you were saying, you like the simple way. You don't want to go into the complexities, and it's just, I just find it kind of humorous that, are we going to get to the end of this little scavenger hunt that we've been on and realize that all we had to do was just be ourselves? Like, that's eternal love. Like, it's weird. It's just like,
it's
I
like
can
the
just
cosmic joke, right?
Yeah, it is a cosmic joke. And I see it here at Soulogy for 10 years. I see people come into this environment and they're just like, I can just be myself. I can say whatever I want. The energy is kicking my ass today. I got a visit from my dead grandmother. These two Arcturians knocked on the door and came in and had coffee, or whatever it is, to be able to just, that's the transparent truth. I mean, it's so weird that it could just be something that simple, Do you think that, these, I like the term too, consciousness traps. Is that what you said? Consciousness trap. Yeah. I mean, I guess we're all seeing more every day. And one of the things that I'm starting to understand, I remember when I graduated high school, my best friend's father, who was very influential with me, he says, Todd, wherever you go, your college, the business world, organizations, whatever, you're always going to see the same percentage of everything in each group. It's always going to be the same distribution, the same makeup. And so I'm seeing a lot of interesting and fluctuating energies and expressions in what we call the light worker community.
Yes.
And it's all good. I'm not throwing rocks at anybody, because again, it's all about me. It's all about how I react or don't react or whatever. But it's interesting because and back to the question, are there consciousness traps as prevalent in the light worker circles as in any other circle in life?
Definitely. Absolutely. And I think that's the trap I got into, because I thought that the spiritual community had all the answers. And then I was like, after a while, and things were working, and I was like, hold on a minute, something funky's going on here, I was like, wow. And then, just the idea, so let's talk about a few of them, this idea that Earth's a school and we're here learning lessons God, that's the most disempowering thing I've ever heard. That takes me right out of my mastery. It doesn't even acknowledge that I'm a master. And I just feel like
it alludes to suffering and
so the same with karma. Oh my goodness, karma. Well, we all know with quantum time that is not the way that it has been portrayed, right? I just don't, this whole idea that the ego is bad is the terrible thing and we're trying to get rid of it, out the window, over that one. The whole idea that we need some guru or hierarchy over ourselves again, that one, threw that out. This whole idea that we've had this fall from grace or consciousness as humanity, and humanity is this terrible, thing on the planet, like out the window with that one. I just, protection, another one. You need protection for whatever. Never understood protection, never used it. Like,
I agree.
I
agree with that.
A lot of the stuff that is floating around the spiritual community that you start to, and then you get the awake asleep conversation, that we were sort of touching on before, but those to me are all the consciousness traps.
Or the solar flash, or Jesus coming on a chariot, or spaceships landing.
Yeah.
Q and the white hats saving the world.
I mean, anything that's kind of agenda based is putting you into victim consciousness.
That's
so. I sort of feel like all of those are all the traps that I'm talking about.
I got you.
And when you realize how disempowering a lot of that is, it's energetic. When you're even just looking at that to understand or get a grip on what's going on or whatever, you're entangling with that information.
That's
becoming a vibrational match with it. And so anything, you've got to be really careful where you are spending your energetic currency right now, specifically on this planet. It is really, really, really important. And there's a whole part of the unconscious, conscious community that's playing out right now.
Well, yeah. And even like, it's really important. To me, that could be in consciousness trap. If it's being presented from an external and I accept it over and above my own guidance or my own, because, back to a better example, the spiritual community and what you said about the entanglement, right? Like I can see it. Part of what I was referring to earlier are these projections of judgment. When I can also see the perfection that for myself, I can only speak for myself, but I know obviously it's all of us, to be able to go, oh, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to say anything? Why do I have to think that? I've had this download since 2018, which people have heard me talk about. I don't talk about it so much anymore because I know, just like the Soulogy Fest took 4 years, it might take another couple of years, but to have this, and it will happen, to have this Soulogy network expand with what we have now to where you have, this multifaceted alternative to YouTube, Facebook, and so on.
Yeah.
And I had this thought last week as I was contemplating what we're talking about, what you were talking about with the entanglement part. And I had this thought. I thought, when that occurs, to have the social community set up like Facebook, that part of it, with one exception, and that is you cannot comment on somebody's post.
Right.
So that means you can't contradict it, make them wrong, but it also means you can't say, I love you and good job.
Yeah.
And I thought, to me, energetically, that's stay in your own lane. Now, that doesn't mean that you didn't inspire me with your post or that you didn't trigger me.
Yeah.
But I can't infringe upon your creation.
Yes.
And impose my energy uninvited.
Right.
Even if it's me blowing, accolades to you. But I can go into my own space and create my own post, my own expression, my own video from the inspiration that you gave me or the trigger that you gave me. And that's creation. That's
Right.
the Vesica Pisces, right?
Yes.
That's that creates a third energy where your stream went out, my stream went out, and somewhere in the air they're going to mix, and more of it comes out. But yeah, I think that's something that's getting louder, and I love the humanness of your approach. I wanted to ask you too, because I saw, you know, I saw your expression, and when you were saying how when you were writing this thing and you were telling these stories about yourself, I could see the pain and I could see the laughter too, because I do the same thing when I talk about, my first 2 years were on the streets and doing a lot of wild stuff. But that. I mean, I know that was because you said it was that easy. And not to compare anything or make anything right or wrong. I'm just curious as to your own perspective. In what you have presented, your expression of your experience up to this point in your life, how much of that, let's say it's broken up into two parts. One part is the story, and the other part is, let's just say, guidance or instruction or direction. What do you think impacts people more from your perspective? I'm just curious. There's no wrong answer. I'm just curious.
I feel that people really relate to the personal story because it connects them with it makes them safe to feel things about themselves that they may not have felt safe to feel before.
Yeah.
Because I'm really raw and honest and authentic about it. I'm pretty. And
no filter.
Yeah.
That's me, no filter.
Me too. And I'm very direct and I say it like it is. And I also, because I'm so internal with my understanding and my processing of it, I'm very revealing of that. So I think that part of it makes people connect with it.
Yeah.
But then they also, I've never had so many comments on the wisdom that was also intermingled within the book, the channeled wisdom, that people absolutely adored that part of it. And I really thought, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I thought people might just skip over it and just want the juicy kind of, the other part of the story. So it's definitely both. I don't think it's one or the other. And I love the way it comes together. And that's literally how I am too. I'm always using my own experience to just share it to help others with their own understanding of their own experience. Like I was talking the other day about, just recently, and you're just talking about these last months, but in the last week, I mean, I've had this for quite the majority of my life, but I didn't understand what it was before. It's like the fabric of reality glitches. And I can see it actually with my physical, and I feel it. And I can see these almost tears in the fabric of my reality. Are they like time shifts or something? And I never knew what that was. I mean, at one point, this is quite a while ago, I felt my whole reality go away and then come back again and almost to tumble me over. It was so strong. But I've noticed these things, the glitches happen. And I feel like it's when I'm upgrading my energetic vibrational resonance that is I'm actually recreating the reality around me. And I'm actually able to see that kind of shift and change to a certain extent.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Do I really know what that is? I'm gagging a guess.
I mean, I get what you're saying. And I've come across a lot of people especially over the last couple of years that have talked about this. And I'm the same way too. I didn't become comfortable with we're jumping timelines, we're converging timelines. until probably the last few months. I mean, I was like, what are you talking about? What does that look like? What does that feel like?
Yeah.
But I love what you said too about the because we are mirrors, and there's a difference between telling the story, you know, and obviously being on the pity pot or blowing smoke up your own ass, you know, excuse my French, but there's a difference between that type of storytelling and that storytelling that is transparent and brave, and takes courage and doesn't come with ease and grace always, because you are reliving it like you were talking about, because it does provide a mirror, not only a mirror of what I might can relate to, but also a mirror of, hey, this is a space that I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with you to share it with you. And that is the heart, you know, which is kind of cool. We've got two hashtags here. The first one was I am soul for years, until I met my wife, and she explained to me that you cannot find your soul until you find your human. So then it became the human is the hero. But I've always said that, you know, another way to say I am soul is to say I'm not afraid to show my ass.
Right.
You know, so that's why, like, as you know, I meet people, they come on, I click live. You know, I had two people write me last night, hey, do you want to have a private chat before the show, before we do the show next week or whatever? I'm like, no, I don't. You know, it's like the
I love it.
more, there's something about like these glitches that you're talking about, this reality that we don't know what the hell it is. It's like the biggest challenge is like getting used to it. Like,
Yeah.
and even though it's innate somehow, but there's something about having this spontaneous thing going, like no expectations, no plans. I know that's like blasphemy to our world, but there's something about that which you can't describe, and these are like pieces of it: intuitive, telepathic, spontaneous, and I
Definitely.
think that's what comes out in the type of story that you're talking about, because it's kind of like Forrest Gump. You're just walking through going, oh, you know, I didn't know I just did that. Or like you told your friends, like I created all this. I can't believe I did this. This is you used the word comedy at the beginning of the show. So yeah, it's so funny because it's not those, it isn't those long-winded, you know, complications, you know, complicated creations from our finite mind. It's these beautiful, simplistic, humorous, wise, loving, little profound things, right? It's just, and it's
Yeah,
like, and that's what we are. It's just coming full circle. But how do
totally.
you do that? It's
And I
still,
think, you know, I've spent definitely the last 5 years really unraveling every my state of being, you know, and changing it, going from doing to being, going from action to stillness, going from, you know, I was recreating how to live, really.
yeah,
And what you were talking about is you have to be in the unknown in every moment. There isn't any planning or control
that's
or
right.
any of it. It's a totally different way to live.
That's right.
And I think, you know, everybody on a global level has been pushed into that experience that I was having on a personal level over the last 5 years. And with what has been going on, you know, everywhere, because everyone is walking their own path of initiation here. They are in their individual initiatory path, and everything is perfect for them. And, you know, we are the ones that sort of throw things around or may become judgmental about that as being right or wrong when everyone is doing it absolutely perfectly for them.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's what they came to do. So it's really interesting the way this reality is set up like that to such fine precision that it just boggles the mind, but we're not supposed to understand it with our mind, you know.
No.
And I think when we try, that's when we fall into these traps.
That's exactly right. But we thought the mind was us, you know, and obviously the mind is multifaceted, ego and conscious and subconscious, I mean, there's a whole, but you're right. I mean, it's another thing that I hear more people saying, or, is it's not the thinking, it's the feeling. And especially this year, a lot of people like myself have, even really going back to last year, kind of correlating with the whole COVID timeline is the body speaking, the body, as really kind of the start and the beginning and end, everything, all the information's there, right? And something doesn't feel right, you don't do it. You don't rationalize it out and do the Ben Franklin and make the pros and cons and make the list anymore and figure out what you want to do. It's just a feeling, everything is, and this is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird. Like, how are you going to schedule shows, 6 months from now?
Yeah.
I mean, what do? You just turn on the thing and go into the studio and send out the link to every page on the network and see who shows up. I mean, how does that work? Like, how does that work?
It's true. We're really starting to navigate a completely different way of life, and it takes some getting used to. It really, I mean, I don't have the answers to that at the moment. I'm just navigating it in my own way already, just trying to, figure it out as I go along, and not even figure it out, just being and with it, and understanding and trusting that if I'm meant to be somewhere doing something, that's what I'm going to be doing, and it's actually such a more calm way to go through life and navigate this journey. It's just really, just that deep knowing. It's getting back to that and aligning with that soul presence more than anything else. Yeah,
it's weird. It's for everything. It's I think we're doing a great job, and but I like it. The whole being thing. It's like, all you got to do is be. It almost sounds like another light worker, new age cliche, but it's as real as experience as your teacher. The only thing is, what does being mean?
Yeah.
See, that's the whole thing. Is like, how do you be? Because there's a part of us that says you got to do something. You need to do something, right? It's kind of like getting a download, And I get a download in 2018 in the summer, and they're like, "You're going to do this. You're going to be part of this network, and it's going to look like this and this and that." And actually went on for like 3 years before that. And then you think you got to go do something, right? You got to go do this. You got to go make it happen. But I had a friend tell me about 2 years ago on the show, maybe you're just feeling the alignment.
Right.
So maybe as these things get close, like say the light beings that came in, to your dream, maybe that, again, I love what you said earlier about metaphor. Maybe that was yourself presenting to you the alignment you were coming into about the heart, the heart technology, so yeah. I remember when I started out doing videos about 2014, and I remember doing this street preacher rant about how you find your faith and how you test your faith and how you find your soul. Well, I had lost everything. I was telling them, take everything away, every belief system and everything. And then I remember saying, there's Illuminati, there's archons, there's Jesus, there's there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And how endless the universe is. And I remember saying, we're not going to figure this shift out. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to figure it out.
No. So there's no point in even wasting our energetic currency on it.
Yeah.
Hey, true. I just can hear my cat crying. Can I just open the door? Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Open the door. What? We're going to sign off anyway. Yeah, we're good. Wow, look at that mirror. That's trippy. That looks like What is that? How trippy is that? All right, so we got a new friend. We got another show coming on in 2 hours. We might have a special show tonight. What is at the top of that mirror before we get out of here? What is that figure?
It's just it's actually from a French chateau.
It looks like a face, though. What is that? Is that a face?
No, it's just a sort of an ornate kind of thing. But
it's
I think it's just you.
It looks like an ascended master or something with a lion's face. Yeah.
Could well be.
I want to tell you, it's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
Really, I mean, you're really down to earth. I dig that, and
thank you.
I wish you the best always, and maybe sometime in the first quarter, if you're up to it, if you want to, we can do this again.
I would love that
next year. Yeah,
but yeah.
So yeah, because we
love these conversations. It's so fun.
We could talk about a lot of things. I mean, we didn't even get into what's happening.
We barely scratched the surface, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and see, that's the other thing too. Like, I just talked to a friend of mine. I hadn't seen her in 3 or 4 months, and she's very connected. And like, God, everybody I'm running into, like, I know I'm changing. They're watching me change. I come out here every day, but to see people 3 or 4 months down the road, how much we're all changing, it's awesome. But anyway, you take care, and you got some fellow New Zealanders.
So great to meet you properly, and thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this chat, and full honor and respect for this incredible platform that you've created and allowing people like me to come on and jam with you, because it's just a pleasure and a joy. And thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And Mari Ora He Tu Kana. Appreciate it, bro. That's New Zealand language. Okay.
It is, Modi.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joanna.
Amazing.
Take care.
Cool. Cheers, Todd.
We'll be back in 2 hours with